Okay, our first lesson to watch during this online classes is lesson 101, factorable denominators. So what we'll do is you'll watch this video and we can stop it. You can ask questions at any time during the video and I'll stop it and explain things until you can get it. Alright, example 1. These problems are, if you don't know how to factor, you're in trouble, just saying. But in the positive way, if you don't know how to factor, you'll learn how to factor better by watching me do these problems. So, we're going to subtract two fractions. And remember, anytime we subtract two fractions, like if we have 3/4 minus 1/3. Now, how would we do that? Well, if you're in arithmetic class, you find a common denominator. So that would be 12. And we would take this one times 3 to give us 12, so we need to take the numerator times 3, so it would be 9. This one times 4 to give us 12, so our numerator times 4, so it would be 9 minus 4, and so we get 5/12. That's what we're doing. We have some really complicated fractions though, but what we have to do is find a common denominator. Now we've done something like this before, but this time we have factorable denominators, which means one of these denominators can be factored before we begin. So let's start here. We're going to factor our denominators, any ones that can be factored. You can just put it right underneath the problem. Makes it less work. So we say what times what gives me x squared? Well, that would be x times x. And then we say what times what will give me 12, and when I subtract it, I get -1. Well, that's easy. That would be 4 times 3. So we do our 4 times 3. We want to subtract it to get -1, so the bigger one has to be negative, and there we go, we factored it. Now the tricky part is we need to find our common denominator. So we draw our big long line, and we say what will this go into and this go into. If we go back to our example up here, we have 3, and if we would factor our denominator, I don't think this one helps any to give that example, so let's skip that. Okay, so we need all of this denominator to be in our common denominator, and we need all of this denominator to be in our common denominator. So we're going to need this whole thing, x minus 4 and x plus 3. So this whole denominator is contained in our common denominator. Now we go to the next one. X minus 4 has to be in our common denominator, and it already is, so we don't need to add another x minus 4. Now we see what's missing. This one isn't missing anything, so we can just write down our 6x. On the other hand, this one is missing the x plus 3, so we have to multiply this p by an x plus 3. And then we have to distribute it, and we should get our answer. So we get 6x minus px minus 3p all over, and you can just leave it, you can either leave it in factored form, which is fine with me, or you can multiply it out and get x squared minus x minus 12. Using FOIL, we should get what we started with up here. It's not that hard. So that's an easy example of what we're going to do. Let's try one that's more complicated. This one has denominators, both of these can be factored. So this is factored into two binomials. X times x gives me this term. And we say what times what gives me 6, and when I subtract it, I get 5. So that would be 6 and 1. Now if I put 3 and 2 in here, when I subtract those, I don't get -5. So this is going to be negative, and this is going to be positive. Remember, if the last sign is negative, then the signs are going to be different. If the last sign is positive, both signs are going to be the same as the first sign. Go over here, we can take an x out of these. It's not a trinomial, so we're going to take an x out, and we're going to get x minus 6. Now we're looking for the common denominator. I think we did this before. Once we get to this point, it should be what you already know how to do. So we need, for this fraction, we need an x minus 6 and an x plus 1. Now the x minus 6 is already in this, so we don't need to add another x minus 6, but we don't have an x, so we need to add the x, or we're really multiplying by x. Now this one, what's it missing to be our common denominator? It needs an x. So we multiply the top and the bottom by an x. So the top of this one is now 7x. This one is missing the x plus 1, so we can multiply the top and bottom so that we don't change the value of the fraction by an x plus 1. Tricky part for this is the negative sign. You need to distribute the negative 5 through both of these terms. So we get negative 5x minus 5. What happens a lot is you take the 5 times the x and you get the negative still there, so you get negative 5x, but you forget that this negative has to be multiplied through to the 1. And then we just need to simplify it. So 7x minus 5x is 2x minus 5 all over x times x minus 6, x plus 1. Usually you just leave the denominators in factored form. Okay, another one. Anybody have any questions? Want to raise your hand or anything? Okay. Let's do the next one. Another factoring problem. Well, they're all factoring problems. What times what gives me x squared? The signs are going to be different because the last sign is a negative sign. Or we can say what's the difference is a negative too. When we say what's the difference, we know it's subtraction. So these signs are going to be different. What times what gives me 6? And when I subtract them, I get 1. Well, 3 times 2 gives me 6. And when I subtract them, I want the bigger one to be positive this time. Now if I would have put a 6 in 1, I know some of you are still struggling with fractions. If I would have done x plus 6 and x minus 1, when I FOIL these, I need to get what I started with. So this would be x squared minus x plus 6x minus 6. X squared plus 5x minus 6. That doesn't get us what we want, what we originally started with. So this is wrong. You have to get a combination so that when you FOIL it, the first would be x squared, the outer would be negative 2x, the inner is positive 3x, and that gives us x. And then the last needs to be negative 6. Okay, here we go again. We're going to take out an x, and we get x plus 3 is what's left. Now for our common denominator. On the top, we could take out a 2, but it doesn't help us any, so we won't do that. Our common denominator, we need all of this, x plus 3 times x minus 2, and in this denominator we need an x, so we need to add an x here. Now this denominator is missing an x, so we take an x times the top and bottom. When you're taking it times a binomial, you need the parentheses because the x has to be times the 4x and the 2. So we're going to get 4x squared plus 2x. This one is missing the x minus 2, so the top and bottom by x minus 2. This is almost identical to the last problem. And we're going to distribute, so we get negative 4x plus, now look, negative 4 times negative 2 would be plus 8. And this time we can combine terms. We have like terms here, so we're going to get 4x squared minus 2x plus 8 all over x times x plus 3, x minus 2. Let's see if I have one for you to try. I do. Alright, so I'm going to pause the video, and you guys try this, and then we'll see what you get. Alright, let's do this together now. So, we get x, 7 and 3 would be my guess, negative, positive. Common denominator is x minus 7, x plus 3. This one's not missing anything, it's exactly the same, so you can write the 9x. This one's missing the x plus 3. So we're going to get minus, remember to distribute, minus 7x minus 21. Combine like terms. Oops, where did that 7 come from? Hold on a second. I wrote that twice. Alright, so that would be 9x minus 7x minus 21. Okay, that looks better. So we get 2x minus 21 all over x minus 7, x plus 3. Alright, that's it for lesson 101.